our thanks to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey for joining us today. Commissioner, welcome to the Rick and Bubba Show. How are you?
Thank you. I've been on before. You guys have forgotten, apparently. I used to be the band parent with, like, the Briarwood Band when they'd show up.
That's right. I forgot about that.
No idea who was standing in the background of those things.
I didn't even know that.
Commissioner, first off, let us congratulate you on your new deal. You're going to be extended as a SEC commissioner, and you've done a great job and well-deserved.
Well, my hair's getting gray, so at the end of that deal, I may not have any, but it's rewarding to have the support of our presidents and chancellors. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years, and just the last year and a half has been like 3 decades.
Yeah.
So, I look forward to a future. It's an exciting place, an exciting time, and a lot of change, and it's good to have the kind of stability and support that we have in the Southeastern Conference.
Commissioner, too, I think you have to be commended for keeping the best secret in modern history. I mean, maybe with the exception of the formula of Coke, you kept the secret of Nebraska, Texas, and Oklahoma joining the SEC, and I don't know how in the world you kept that quiet.
Well, somebody just shuddered when you said Nebraska first, so it's fun.
Well,
We just did a Nebraska story. It was fresh on my mind.
Well, let me tell you something. If you want to go ahead and announce that today, you can, or you can keep that a secret, too.
Well, there goes that second segment. It's fascinating to me to think about how narratives develop. And I actually went back to when I was going through the search process. I had just a little line that said, we want to make ourselves as most successful as we possibly can, do things with excellence so that people really come to us, whether it's writers asking us about how we continue to sustain excellence, or people who want to work here. And really that produced a phone call saying, hey, would you be interested if we ever sought membership? And that was on them. What people seem to miss is they had to make decisions about their future, and then we had to make decisions. So there's a risk there. And I certainly couldn't guarantee membership, but there obviously was interest given the prominence of the University of Oklahoma and University of Texas, and ultimately our members unanimously said those two will be an important part of our future. So we tried to manage that appropriately, managed it well, and it certainly was big news when it broke.
Yeah. Did they mention at all that part of them leaving the Big 12 was that there's only 10 teams? Can you do anything? We were to some of these names. I mean, the Big 10 has 14 teams. The Big 12 has 10. Is it time to correct these numbers? I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, I thought we cut a deal for me to appear. There's not any math on the show. We've now got that problem.
We do try to stay clear of that.
I do have like social media remarks about it's the Southeastern Conference. Well, if you look at quadrants of the United States, all of our members are in the southeastern portion of the United States. So we have stayed away from numbers, and we use geography as a broad label, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, just keep it broad.
Commissioner, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, have you really addressed realignment yet? What the East and West is going to look like, or will that be an argument for another day?
We just finished 2 days of discussions for the first time with athletics directors after the announcement of membership transition. That was the first opportunity to bring people together, talk about principles. And what I've asked is that we just look at the big picture. So you asked a question about divisions, and I won't answer a question now about divisions because I want us to take a step back and really think about how can we move teams through our campuses more frequently. Right now, if you're on the east side, your non-permanent West opponent, you'll see at home once in 12 years. We shouldn't be doing that. We should rotate with the names of the universities, the prominence of our football programs. We want those to show up on our campuses and on the road at other campuses more frequently. Now, how do we achieve that? And that's really the beginning point of our conversation, rather than just talking about divisions or no divisions, who's in the East, who's in the West. Let's figure out what types of opportunities can we find that provide more rotation, more variety, draw fans in for these big games with the Southeastern Conference label, and then we'll figure out the format.
Totally agree with that. As a fan, I think that there's too many prominent brands that we don't see together on one of the two teams' campuses enough. And man, if we could address that, that'd be great. I mean, we're missing some great matchups. Like I say, every 12 years it's too much time.
Yeah, Commissioner, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the great narratives out of our past expansion is Kentucky, I think 2 years ago, played in College Station. That was the one time in 12 years Kentucky football played Texas A&M on the road. They sold every ticket available because people wanted to be a part of it. It was new, it was fresh, it was a different place. Well, you want to find the balance. Once every 12 years is skewed too far. So how can you maybe swing that pendulum a bit so that there's more frequency, more familiarity? It feels like a conference, even with a larger number of teams.
Commissioner, is it even possible that you might see a different format that's not as relying on East and West, and that's kind of what I'm hearing you say, where we might see in football more of a jumbled up schedule and then just the best two teams play in Atlanta for a championship? Is something like that even a remote possibility?
I would narrow it to that. So I, again, back up. I have this book on my bookshelf called The Art of Possibility. And so what I want us to do is deal with possibilities now. We had to change in the early 90s when Roy Kramer created divisions in the championship game. The championship game is really a cultural icon for us to think back, well over 25 years now, when there was a lot of resistance, and every conference has moved to that format for determining a football champion. That's special. How we determine who's there at the 16-team level, it can include divisions. I showed actually at the AD meeting, there's a Saturday Night Live skit. It's from years ago called The Change Bank, where you show up with a 20 and you get 2 10s or 2 10s and 2 5s. However you want it, we can figure it out. So we're like in the change bank portion of the discussion. Let's think about the possibilities. We might give you $21 bills back if you give me a $20 bill. And then narrow it down based on a set of principles. One of those that I think is important is rotation, and that may include divisions, but that remains to be seen.
Commissioner, too, you've kind of been at the forefront pushing for change at the NCAA. Are we going to see that model modified here in the next few years, maybe more autonomy for the conferences? Or how do you see the NCAA 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, well, why don't you ask me about 6 months down the road first? Yeah. I'll figure out 5 years. It's a little bit difficult for me to follow the bouncing ball of NCAA constitutional initiatives. Fundamentally, again, when you look at the problem in the big picture, we have a different set of realities in this conference than others in Division I. Yet we're all forced into the same room and told, why don't you make great decisions? And here's the kicker, for student athletes. Well, I want opportunities for my student athletes. Like this year, I believe, based on what we learned last year, we should have started preseason practice 3, 4, 5 days earlier and built in more rest days to preseason practice. More recovery time. We did that last year when we adjusted around the pandemic. We just needed the space to do it. Well, you throw it into a big room and somebody says, well, we can't afford to bring kids in 3 days early. Our summer school's here. We don't have this. We don't have that. I'm just trying to do the right thing. And in that circumstance, you hear the frustration that we're stuck in this bureaucracy that doesn't produce good results. So fast forward to your question. What's it going to look like in 5 years? Well, we've taken a problem to say we are in a modern era of college athletics, and there was a 22-person committee, and then like 3 days later, no, it's 23, and then 2 days later, no, it's 28 people. So if that doesn't speak to the NCAA, I don't know what does, number one. And number two, we've taken a big problem that doesn't fit the NCAA committee structure and stuck it right in an NCAA committee. That may not seem the best way to achieve optimal outcomes. And so those of us in leadership roles are going to have to participate. And I want to see the NCAA as an effective organization, but its leadership has to adapt. Its board of governors has to adapt. Those of us in commissioners' chairs have to adapt and be more nimble and thoughtful and effective and how we approach what is a clearly modern era of college sports.
We'll come back and we'll discuss more about this modern era of college sports with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey when we return.
Commissioner, that we're limited here on time, but we want to hit a few other things. First, congratulations on the 10-year deal you negotiated with Disney/ABC/ESPN for the SEC, and you did such a good job on that. Would you consider handling Rick and my contract? We're unemployed at the end of the year.
Yeah, we need you.
I think having listened to your podcast, you should have Todd Jones represent you.
Payback. So you were telling us a story in the break, and Bubba said you guys had talked about this. You actually said you told me this story one time about, 15, 16 years ago, concerning Coach Bill Burgess, Greg and I, our dad, because you came in and were helping with the Southland Conference, right, as Jacksonville State had just moved to 1AA out of Division II after winning the national championship, and you told us a funny story about that.
Yeah, so 96, the commissioner of the Southland Conference left, went to work for the Big 12. I'm the associate commissioner. I'm interim. I'm 31 years old. I don't know what the future is going to look like. We had a meeting in New Orleans, and we had our ADs, our football coaches, our presidents were there, and they met at different times. And I'm in charge, but I'm like temporary help at that point. And they're trying to figure out how to do a search for the next commissioner. And I went through, I don't know what the agenda item was. And your dad stops the meeting and says, hey, look, I know nobody cares what a football coaches think, but why don't you just hire this guy as your commissioner and let him go to work? And he pointed at me. Again, I'm 31 years old. I knew I had a chance, but I think we miss moments in life to breathe into somebody else. And that was somebody who saw something in me I probably didn't see in myself. I was just trying to do a job. I was hopeful. So I stopped Rick in the Apple store. I don't know, it was like 10 or 15 years ago. He's got no idea who I am. And it's probably one of those awkward moments that happens when you're a public figure where somebody's telling your story and you're very nice. But that was me trying to say thank you to Bill Burgess for what he did. I'm not sure he has email, so I can't send him an email.
No, he doesn't have email. No,
he doesn't believe it.
I was pretty sure of that.
Well,
he's still swapping. He's still got GA swapping videotape at an Exxon station.
That's right.
You're right. But, he always had a knack for seeing something in people that a lot of times that you didn't know you had yourself. So I'm not surprised that he saw your future without you even realizing it. Yeah. So that's a cool story.
It really is. Commissioner, a lot of folks out there, the numbers with COVID are trending in the wrong direction. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of excitement that we're going to play football and have fans back in and band and cheerleaders and everything that goes with it. A lot of people are worried that this is going to get shut down again. What can you tell them about that, or what are those possibilities, or how are we going to deal with this if it continues to go in the wrong direction?
I'm concerned as well. I share those concerns. And I start with our football teams. We've spent now almost a year and a half working with a team of doctors and sports medicine specialists, developing, really creating, adjusting, fine-tuning protocols to keep our teams as healthy as possible. And you've heard we have teams that are essentially at 100% vaccination rate within their team unit. That's staff and players. That's sometimes a couple hundred people. Our athletics department vaccination rates are well above anything in the public domain. And we need to follow that lead. We've sought information. We've ignored like the TV doctors. I don't care what network, and gone to people who are like on the front lines of research and of treating this virus to ask for information. We had an athletics directors meeting I referenced, brought in one of our doctors, Katie O'Neill, who's out of Baton Rouge, who's just a phenomenal person, frontline person, talked to one of our football teams, and boom, their vaccination rate went from like 50% to 90% within the allotted time for the double vaccination to take hold. And that's the kind of education we need. And the public asked me last year, are we going to play football? Well, you know what? It's now in their hands. I understand all the politics that play out, and I said it at media days in my speech. COVID-19 is not a political football. Vaccination's not a political football. Go educate yourself. If you read my social media, it's just like tomfoolery about this discussion. Hey, nothing's perfect. Can we just admit that? Nothing is perfect. What is the best set of circumstances for this society to be as healthy as possible? Because when the society is healthy, we're going to play football uninterrupted. If we have this trend continue upward, that diminishes the opportunity not to have disruption. And I'll just speak from my chair. I'm really proud of what we accomplished last year. We had 9 national championship teams out of this league. If you watch the Olympics, my goodness, we had almost 90 medals won. That doesn't happen if we don't try, but I can't guarantee anything. And going through last football season, I'm just going to tell you it was miserable. Mike Leach said it once. It wasn't any fun. We took the joy out of it. We need the joy back someplace in our existence. And we can do that, but people have to move beyond their biases, their anger, their frustration, and access the opportunities to be healthy. And you know what? I believe the vaccine's part of that.
And that's you were very decisive last year, which I think was good because the conferences that were indecisive, it really came across even more chaotic. But you're right, even making those hard decisions and apparently making some good decisions doesn't mean it still wasn't a very difficult, miserable experience. But it was.
No.
It was.
I didn't know where you were going to go. You said you were decisive, which was I was hoping it was like at least medium or good. So
no, you were. I mean, you knew. You said, "Hey, we're going to play."
Yeah.
The SEC got out there and said, "We're going to play, and we're going to work out a plan to do so." And that's what I mean. I thought that was good that you were decisive and here's what we're going to do, and now we're working out on how we're going to do it. And it sounds like you're kind of saying the same thing about this season. We're going to do it, but we got to work out a plan based on we can't plan on things we don't know yet. So everybody's got a plan to do it.
Yeah, it's and hope's not a plan. It's like the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes should be written as part of a pandemic learning. That there isn't anything that's guaranteed. You may think that here's your plan, and it can fall apart, and you had better be prepared for that. And we have prepared and planned as best we can, but we can manage through a COVID environment, but we don't have control of COVID-19, and we have to be honest about that, and we all do. But I'll go back to kind of my Mike Leach reference. I think it was right. We took the joy out of it, not me, not like our coaches. The reality did. We need a little bit of happiness back in our life.